How to beat 99% of e-commerce's copywriting in literally 2 minutes while using ChatGPT so you never have to worry about non-converting copy in the first place. Hey guys, it's Tim, and today we're going to focus on one of the most important points in actually driving sales through your Shopify store, which is your copywriting. And it doesn't matter if it's your ad, your first email, that piece of content, or the product page. Copy is one of the most important points when it comes down to converting prospects to get to actual buying the product. Now, there is something that I want to show you that is actually super important, because just because you have a product market fit, or just because your shop is running on 6 figures every month, right? That does not mean that you can lay low on the topic of copywriting. Copy and marketing is something that is currently changing, and it is constantly adapting to the new trends of the industry. So this is something we need to keep an eye out. But in these undestined times of when you maybe not know what is the next copy piece you need, there is something that you can always fall back on. And this is something that I want to show you today. It's called the PWA, a psychological writing asset. Now, before we come to this PWA I want to show you today, I want to just make one thing very, very clear. And this is, my friend, that you're actually not in the products business. If you're selling stuff online, that means that you are indeed in the outcomes business, because you are right now helping people get to a desired outcome that they want to have, which means that you shouldn't be focusing on just telling the features, because trust me, nobody on this earth cares about the features of your product, but rather the benefits that every single product in your store has. Because it's the benefits and it is the desired outcome that tell the story, that is so compelling that people get emotional, and people need to be emotional in order to buy. Because if you still think that there are rational human beings out there, right, that make a reasonable decision on buying something based on rational thoughts and a rational thought process, then I'm sorry, but you're wrong. People buy because of emotions. That is the single most underlying fact on why marketing works. Because if people would be truly rational, right? If people would be truly knowing what marketing is, they wouldn't fall into it. But people fall for marketing all the time. Meaning we have to tap into this emotional reservoir that every human intrinsically carries around with it. Now, the two strongest emotions that we should focus on in these days are, of course, the fears and the desires. And this should be nothing new to you, right? Every piece of copy that you write should be facing around the fears or the desires. Now, not every product is meant to be advertised using fear, and not every product should be advertised using certain desires. Now, of course, in an ideal place, in an ideal world, your copy on different stages of the customer journey will always address the fears and the desires alike. But you should know that fears come always before the desires come, right? Fears are always the much more powerful tools in order to trigger the pain points of each and every single prospect that is visiting your store, and of course your target group in total. Now, the point that we're trying to make is to move from the fears in order to get to the desired outcome. This is the road that every single customer and every single prospect inside your store should be taking. And there is a very, very helpful tool in order to see how that works and how we're going to use that. And this is what I want to focus on today. Now, what you're seeing here is actually the hierarchy on how to advertise certain products. And this is the so-called PWA that I wanted to talk about today. So what does this PWA does? Is actually it will show you in which of these following 5 categories your product will fall into. And by knowing the product category in which your sold outcome, in which the product that you're selling falls into, you will know exactly if it is better to advertise using the fear or the desire state, right? So let's have a look into what I actually mean. If we look into this first subcategory of this hierarchy, we see the physiological needs. So all the things that humans need in order to just basically survive, which means air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, everything that is based around our pure survival. Now, products that fall into this category are perhaps water filters, right? Or high protein snacks or meals like we can see with Huel, Y-Food, or just a random protein bar you get in your wholesale shopping when you go out to get groceries. Also things like mattresses or even sleep trackers like this Garmin watch can fall into these categories, because they help with certain problems that we have with our physiological needs, right? Because you wouldn't want to give dirty water or dirty food into your family, right? To your own kids. Now, this is something that is super easy to advertise using the topics of fears, which is why this first category is always something that you can use and advertise into the pain points of the set customer group. Now, if we move one hierarchy higher up, we will see the so-called safety needs, right? Which are personal security, employment, health, all the things that are not necessarily vital for our survival, but do make it a lot easier, right? Safety needs are basically things like your typical insurance company is selling you safety products, right? Because by selling safety products and selling safety needs, you can easily trigger the future pain points and the future fears of your target customer. Now, home and health insurance go into that, but also home security systems like the Ring doorbell cameras, right? They play into a huge role in these safety needs. So it also is very much easier to advertise these products using your fears. Next up, we have the third hierarchy, which is the love and belonging state. And now the love and belonging state is actually a very interesting one, because friendships, intimacy, family, and the sense of human connection is also something that every human desires to have, but also fears to not have. So here it really comes down to what you're actually selling. Now, let's take an example. Every single human being on this earth wants to find his own soulmate, right? This is something we all long for. It is a desire that every single human on this planet has. Now, on the contrary, everyone is a little fearful about what will happen if we don't find them. Will we reproduce? Will we have a family? Will we have something to give on? So this is the state where it now starts to shift. You can use either the fears that you can instill in the customers or the desires. It doesn't really matter. Let me just write that down. Or the desires, right? Both in this works. Now, the next step we have is the so-called esteem, right? Respect, status, recognition, freedom, all the things that we long for once our basic needs of love and belonging, safety, and physiological needs are met. These are the things like luxury watches, designer clothes, maybe gyms, personal trainers to get your body in shape, all the things that we tend to see as luxury items and as things that we desire to have, because now this is the separation of the have and the have-nots, right? Basically, every physiological need and every safety need in our world is already met by today's modernized standards. But not everybody has a six-pack. Not everybody is wearing a Rolex. Not everybody's driving a Porsche or wearing luxury brands like Louis Vuitton or Prada. And these are the exact things that fall right into the category of desire, which is why the self-esteem, or basically the whole esteem hierarchy, is based on desires alone. And now for the last part. And this is where actually most of what you see today is sold falls into, which is the so-called self-actuation. So the desire to become the most that one can be. And as it says in the name, of course, this is a huge desire factor. Now, what does fall into this page? Now, the self-actuation is actually retreats, coaching programs, maybe books on personal development, or even creative tools, music instruments, all the things that humans want to use to get the most out of their own potential. This is where the self-actuation comes into play. And those are the 5 different hierarchies and the 5 different stages where your product and your desired outcome that you're selling, right, will fall into. And this is all the time when you're writing copy, something that you should keep in mind, that your product indeed falls into one of these 5 categories. And while we have the lower ones down here, the safety needs and physiological needs are easy to target with fear. On the higher ups with esteem and self-actuation, it is always the desires that come into play. Of course, what is very important to know, and I just want to highlight this, is that the actual and easier to sell items are right down here, right? In the safety and physiological needs. Why? Well, because it is easier for us humans to sell through fear than to sell through desire, right? And so you have to have a look in where your actual product can fall into these bottom down categories, because if they can, you have a huge marketing opportunity right at your hands that you should absolutely capitalize on in every single step that you can take with your process. Now, how can you make your life way much easier in order and use ChatGPT to tell you exactly which chances you have in succeeding in your marketing approach with using this hierarchy? The hierarchy you see displayed now is founded by Maslow's. It's called Maslow's hierarchy. You can type it in and you can watch for yourself, but it has been around now for quite some time, multiple decades, and it has worked since the beginning of the marketing age back in the 50s and 60s. Now, let's have a look on how we can actually play this out using ChatGPT. So, when you type in this exact prompt, right, please give me detailed insights on how my product, then you enter the link from your product page, would be positioned on Maslow's hierarchy. I want to know how to advertise my product based on the fear and desired perspective. It will give you a clear outline on the Maslow's hierarchy and the positioning of your own product, meaning you can see directly, is the relevance for a physiological need high or not? Now, in this case, we've used one of our products from the Nara Soleil shop, with is the bikini bottom sailor dark gray. So it's a bikini, right, with a funny name. Of course, this will not have a relevance in the physiological needs, right, which is basically just the base level. Also, the safety need is just moderate because it comes down to things like quality, the fit, the material, and the influence on comfort and self-protection. But all these things are exactly where your competitors will shine. So what we're going to do is we're going to go higher up the ladder, and we can see now that the esteem needs are indeed very high. So this bikini strongly relates on the topics of appearance, confidence, status, and self-image. It will also provide you with a fear-based and a desire-based angle, so you can have a direct idea and a direct implementation where you can see, hey, what can I actually use in order to make this work, which is very nice. Ad copy ideas are also just directly provided, and from here on out you can just play. You will get a nice summary and the advertising angles that you can use from the fear-driven approach and from the desire-driven approach. Now, to end this video, the only thing that I actually want to tell you is you need to have a look out on your copywriting skills, because copy is what makes or breaks the sale, even in today's world. Because in all this time with content marketing, email marketing, and ads that we're bombarded with constantly, every single day, it is so much more important to actually stand out and know exactly what your target customer group is after. And this is what the next video is going to be about. I will make a deep dive on how to actually analyze your customer group, because again, you have a product market fit, that does not mean that your target customer is understanding what you're selling. And this is what I'm here to help. Now, if you need any help with the implementation or just have some genuine questions for me, just click the link down in the link box below in the description and book a one-on-one call with me where we will address exactly all of these points I've just mentioned. I'm looking forward to it. Until then, enjoy your day and stay relentless.